In every Pokemon game, your first Pokemon isn't just a random Pidgey that the professor tells you to catch. It is instead a very powerful starter Pokemon that is either grass, fire, or water type. And every generation of Pokemon has one starter Pokemon of each of those types. For example, Gen 1 has Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. Well, today I'll be ranking all of them, but not ranking them with my opinion. This is an episode of Community Rankings, meaning that I'll be using the Community Rankings feature in Tier List Maker to rank these starters. I will also be using the tiers, equally distributing the 4 Pokemon into each tier, and the tiers will be S, A, B, C, D, and F. Hey guys, this is Gaming Nate, and today I will be ranking every starter based off the Community Rankings feature. Number 24 on the bottom of F tier goes to Chespin, which is the Generation 6 grass starter. I think the reason the community hates this starter so much is that Chespin was a cute starter that had some potential, but then it evolved into this. And then this! The majority of the community agrees that Chespin's evolutions are absolutely ugly. I agree with this placement, as Chestnut is my least favorite Pokemon, is my second least favorite Pokemon in general, just because it is so ugly and underwhelming as a starter. Number 23 goes to Popplio, which is the Generation 7 water starter. I just think this starter stands out among the rest of the starters to very few people, because even though none of the Pokemon in this evolution line are bad, most people think none of them look particularly great either, so it's just kind of an underwhelming starter in the eyes of most. I mostly agree with this spot, but I would have put it a little bit higher, because there are worse starters in my opinion, and plus I have a huge Gen 7 bias, so that's probably the real reason I think that. Number 22 goes to Tepig, which is the Generation 5 fire starter. I think Tepig is in a similar boat as Chespin, as people don't like its evolutions. Tepig isn't amazing, but he's cute enough, but then he evolves into Pignite, and then Emboar. Not only do most people feel that these Pokemon look bad, Emboar was also the third final evolution firefighting type in a row, so people were getting pretty bored of them by this point. I agree with this placement. Number 21 in the top of F tier goes to Sobble, which is the Generation 8 water starter. I honestly don't really understand why people hate on this starter, but I'll make a guess. If I had to guess, I would say that it's also because people don't like the evolutions, as they go a different direction with Sobble, which is a fair argument. However, I disagree with this placement, as Drizzile and especially Inteleon look really cool in my opinion, even if it's a little different than what most people expected from Sobble. This is also the first of 13 Pokemon on this list I've used before, so I have a little bit of bias for this Pokemon. Number 20 in the bottom of D tier goes to Chikurita, which is the Generation 2 grass starter. People don't like this evolution line because of the evolutions of Chikurita, as people find them to not be ugly, but just kind of bland and uninspired, which is why it's ranking above Chespin and Tepig. I honestly don't understand the hate for this evolution line, as to be fair, the Cyndaquil line is just as bland, so why isn't it hated on? But anyways, I disagree with this placement for that reason. As a side note, I do like Cyndaquil, so you guys don't have to kill me. Number 19 goes to Grookey, which is the Generation 8 grass starter. People don't really hate this starter, it just doesn't really stand out among the rest of the starter selection to most. Also, I honestly think people are biased against this starter because it's part of Generation 8, which I totally disagree with doing, by the way. However, I do mostly agree with this placement, as Rillaboom is just kind of a fine Pokemon in my opinion. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like it, but compared to most other starters, it's kind of meh. Number 18 goes to Scorbunny, which is the Generation 8 fire starter. If I'm being completely honest, I think the reason why this starter is being ranked so low is because it's a part of Generation 8. I say this because in the Sword and Shield community, I actually see the Pokemon receive quite a lot of love. I think if Scorbunny was in a generation between 1 and 4, people would like it a lot more, but unfortunately people are just really biased against Gen 8. If I didn't make it already clear, I disagree with this placement. Number 17 in the top of D tier goes to Fennekin, which is the Generation 6 fire starter. People dislike this starter because they believe its evolutions, Braixen and Delphox, are considered very ugly. This is mostly because of Delphox's hair in its ears, which I guess is a little weird, but not enough to ruin the Pokemon evolution line for me. I actually think Fennekin is very cute, and Delphox looks very cool, but that's just personal preference. I've also used Delphox before on my second playthrough of Pokemon Y, so I like this line a lot actually. Number 16 in the top of C tier goes to Oshawa, which is the Generation 5 water starter. Now we're getting to the point where people don't dislike these starters, but they also don't love them, as they just think they're good. Oshawa is here on the list because some people absolutely love its evolution line, especially Samurott, while others just think it's fine. I fall into the second category. I don't dislike this Pokemon, but it just doesn't beat out a lot of the other starters for me. I agree with this placement. Number 15 goes to Litten. Okay, I'm sorry, what? Litten is the best starter and there's no arguing with me. Anyways, with Angry Gaming aside, people put this Generation 7 Fire starter here because people think it is kind of weird that a cute, innocent cat evolves into a wrestling cat that stands on 2 legs. However, Litten was my very first starter in Pokemon, and for that reason I've used it 3 times, and Incineroar is not only my favorite starter, but it's also my favorite Pokemon, as you can probably figure out by my mascot. It's also my favorite gaming character, and the icon on this channel. So if it wasn't obvious already, I strongly disagree with this placement. Number 14 goes to Snivy, which is the Generation 5 grass starter. People put this starter on this spot in the list because it is just kind of there compared to the other starters I haven't mentioned yet. Nobody I know really hates this Pokemon, but it's not super common you see people saying Snivy is the best Pokemon. Well, you're one to talk because you just said Incineroar. Shut up. This is actually my favorite Unova starter, however, and even though I haven't gotten past the second gym badge in a Sinnoh game before, in a Unova game before, if I do it, it will be with Snivy as my starter. However, the starter isn't super awesome in my opinion, so I agree with this placement. Number 13 in the top of C tier goes to Froakie, which is the Generation 6 water starter. This is one of the first starters on this list to be ranked lower because people don't like its first stage evolution that much, which are technically the Pokemon we are rating. Froakie evolves into Greninja, which literally won Pokemon of the Year in 2020. So if people liked Froakie, this Pokemon would easily be in at least A tier. However, this Pokemon looks completely different from Greninja, and Froakie is liked a lot less than Greninja, so that's why Froakie is ranked here. It's hard to say if I agree with this placement or not, as Froakie isn't too cool to me, but Greninja is my second favorite Pokemon, so I guess I agree. Number 12 in the bottom of B tier goes to Chimchar, which is the Generation 4 Fire starter. I'm actually very surprised to see this Pokemon rank as the worst Generation 4 starter on this list, as Chimchar is the only one I probably hear the most love for. However, there is a possibility people put Chimchar a little lower on the list because it was the second fire and fighting type starter in a row. I would personally put Chimchar a bit higher on the list, but not much. Number 11 goes to Turtwig, which is the Generation 4 grass starter. People like this starter simply because its evolution, Torterra, looks cool, especially considering it has an entire forest on its shell. I used to think Torterra looked pretty ugly, but I like it a lot more now after using it on my Pokemon Sun Wonderlock, and now I think that it actually looks pretty cool, so I agree with this placement. Number 10 goes to Rowlet, which is the Generation 7 grass starter. People like this starter because its evolution, Decidueye, looks awesome. And honestly, if Decidueye was part of the Gens 1 through 4, Rowlet would probably be even higher up on this list. I love Litten and Incineroar a ton, but I'm never disappointed when people pick Rowlet in a playthrough just because Decidueye is so cool. I'm also finally getting to use the Decidueye in my Pokemon Legends Arceus playthrough, so I would even put Rowlet a little bit higher on this list. Number 9 in the top of B tier goes to Torchic, which is the Generation 3 Fire starter. I don't think that many people think Torchic is a super cool first stage evolution. However, people rank this Pokemon so high because the final evolution, Blaziken, is really cool. It is a fire and fighting starter, similar to Chimchar and Tepig, but Torchic was the first starter to have this typing, so people don't dislike this evolution line for this, which can't be said about Infernape or Emboar, so I agree with this placement. Number 8 in the bottom of A tier goes to Treecko, which is the Generation 3 grass starter. Treecko is one of the few starters where people actually like all 3 members of the evolution line. This is because in most cases, people find the middle stage evolutions to be very awkward, which is mostly why I haven't talked about them much in this video. However, Grovyle does a great job being a Pokemon that is somewhat cute and somewhat cool, and it feels like a mix between Treecko and Sceptile, which are both really cool Pokemon as well. I agree with this placement. Number 7 goes to Piplup, which is the Generation 4 water starter. I think the main reason people like this starter so much is because Piplup is so cute. I say this because there is a decent amount of people that don't really like Empoleon. However, there are also a lot of people that are huge fans of Empoleon. I fall into the second category. Piplup also isn't a bad middle stage evolution, so that also helps. I agree with this placement. Number 6 goes to Totodile, which is the Generation 2 water starter. This evolution line shows that the progression that an evolution line should have. It starts with Totodile, which is the cute starter but gives you an idea of what's to come when it evolves. Then Croconaw is a good middle ground between Totodile and Feraligatr. And then finally, Feraligatr is a really cool and intimidating final evolution. And they did all this while still keeping the general design the same. I agree with this placement. Number 5 in the top of A tier goes to Cyndaquil, which is the Generation 2 fire starter. This evolution line has always been one of the most interesting to me. Cyndaquil, Quilava, and Typhlosion all have the evolution line progression that I mentioned with Totodile, but all while looking nearly exactly the same. Cyndaquil looks very cute and Typhlosion looks very cool and intimidating, but they don't really have many differences in their design. And on top of all this, they managed to be so cool while having a somewhat bland color scheme, with just 2 main colors, so I agree with this placement. Number 4 in the bottom of S tier goes to Charmander, which is the Generation 1 fire starter. Charmander would at one time be considered by far the best starter. This is because Charizard is technically the worst of the starters based off type map. This is because Charizard is super popular and for its awesome design. Everybody picked it for the Kanto games, even though it is technically the worst of the starters based off type matchups for the games. It even got so popular that Game Freak started giving Charizard special attention in the games. In X and Y, it got 2 Mega Evolutions instead of just 1 like the other Kanto starters. In Sun and Moon, it got a Ride Pokemon page for Fly, and in Sword and Shield, it got the Champion's Ace Pokemon. It actually got so much attention that people started to get bored of the Pokemon, and that's why a Pokemon that could, should, and would be at the number 1 spot on this list ended up at number 4. I agree with this placement. Number 3 goes to Mudkip, which is the Generation 3 fire starter. People think Mudkip's evolutions are just good, and if it weren't for the first stage evolution, it would be ranked in Chimchar's area of the list. However, the reason people are putting Mudkip at number 3 is because Mudkip is just so cute. Like, I literally don't know a single Pokemon fan that doesn't just love Mudkip. Every other Pokemon in this list so far has a good argument on why they aren't placed in S tier. Mudkip just doesn't, so it ranks in S tier. I've never used Mudkip, but I can't deny that it deserves this placement, because I'm not going to say it deserves to go lower on this list. Number 2 goes to Bulbasaur, which is the Generation 1 grass starter. You might have been expecting to see Bulbasaur so high, or you might be extremely surprised or confused right now. Bulbasaur has always been seen as the underdog, the starter that nobody picked when Squirtle and Charmander are there. So what caused it to get ranked so high in this list? Honestly, I feel like it's just because Bulbasaur is Gen 1. People are super biased towards Generation 1, which is why all 3 Kanto starters are getting S tier. Don't get me wrong, I love Venusaur, but this is honestly why I think Bulbasaur is ranked so high. I don't disagree with this placement, but I would put Bulbasaur a bit lower on the list. And finally, the number 1 spot in top of S tier goes to Squirtle. Squirtle is the Generation 1 water starter. Squirtle being ranked so high because it is always considered a classic, along with Charmander, but Game Freak didn't start putting Blastoise everywhere in the games. It's literally as simple as that. Game Freak, if you didn't overuse Charizard, it would have still been number 1 on this list. But because Squirtle is the absolutely amazing classic starter that isn't used all the time, it will take the number 1 spot on this list. I absolutely agree with this placement, and I am very happy to see Squirtle rank at the top. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. What are the choices in this list that you agree with or disagree with the most? Let me know in the comments below. Also, at the time of scripting this, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet just got announced a few days ago, and they look amazing. I recorded a reaction video, but the file didn't play the video after I recorded it. I will definitely be making fan favorite future episodes of these games soon, so look forward to that. But anyways, guys, this video is going to be done. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Bye bye.